One of the main things we try to do on this show, we try to have a balance between D's and R's, and give you all perspectives. And so, in that effort, we've talked a fair amount about things like the that striking workers bill that the governor vetoed, that passed both chambers, that gives unemployment benefits to striking workers after a certain period of time. And of course, we talked a little bit about the housing bill earlier with Representative Eleni Kavros-DeGraw. I want to welcome in Representative Nick Gauthier here on Bryan and Company. He's a freshman state rep representing the 38th District. Representative, good morning. How are you?
Morning. Great. How are you? Thanks for the weather report. It sounds like we're going to have some nice weekend weather.
Yeah, and to be enjoyed for sure. I mean, how was it for you in your first sort of budget cycle here? What was the experience like?
Well, it was not unexpected. I've paid attention. I served in municipal office for 3 terms before getting to the General Assembly. But, the level of negotiation, is very interesting to see all the back and forth and how decisions are, ultimately made.
Now, you serve on the Labor and Public Employees, Energy and Tech. How many committees are you on?
I am on, 3 committees. So Labor and Public Employees, okay. Energy and Technology, and Government Administration and Elections Committee.
Okay. And so I'm assuming that, the striking workers bill came out of Labor and Public Employees. And,
Absolutely.
I have a bunch of questions here. And just so you know, I'm an unaffiliated voter. I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm not neutral. I'm independent in the sense that I reserve the right to criticize anybody or anything. And this bill in particular, I didn't understand for a host of different reasons. And I have a bunch of questions. But the first question I have is sort of not really procedural, but, when you started working on it in committee, was there a sense even then it's something the governor wasn't going to sign? And if there was that sense, what made it so important to make sure you followed it all the way through?
Look, I think at the end of the day, I am here to represent the people of my district, our constituents, but also the people of our state. And most people in our state are working people. They go to a job 9 to 5 or honestly more hours than that. And I think it's my responsibility as a legislator and our responsibility as a General Assembly to represent the people who put us in office, which, again, are workers and working people and working families. So to your specific question, even though, the governor had vetoed last year's version of this legislation and had, thrown up objections to it this year, I still think nonetheless we have to do our job. We, as the General Assembly, we as the legislature, are an independent branch of government, and we are supposed to do our job, and then he is supposed to do his.
I'm curious. To me, it kind of comes down to one question, but I'm not sure it does for you. Is when I'm not anti-union. I mean, SAG-AFTRA is the union of media and broadcasting here in Connecticut, but if somebody is part of a union and of their own volition decides to go on strike when they have a job, why should it be the responsibility of the taxpayer writ large to underwrite that if it lasts beyond a certain amount of time?
So you said earlier, there are a lot of components about this that people and maybe you don't understand. So in that one question alone, I think there are a couple of misconceptions. Number one, taxpayers writ large are actually not on the hook because unemployment insurance is not funded by taxpayers writ large. It is funded specifically by employers, and that's it. And specifically, employers who have, say, laid off a lot of employees and have a lot of employees who are on unemployment for whatever reason, that employer is going to be more responsible for contributing even more to the unemployment insurance system. So just that alone Again, not taxpayers writ large.
Okay.
Number two, in terms of workers going on strike, I don't view, and I don't think most workers view going on strike as, oh, I just felt like doing this, right? Strikes, going on strike is, it is usually talked about as an option of last resort. So if your employer is abusing you, if your employer has unsafe working conditions like eye health workers at the warehouse in Enfield, if your employer is underpaying you, if they're cutting back on your health insurance, if they're understaffing you, if you are a nurse in a hospital where you are both more unsafe and your patients are more unsafe because you don't have safe staffing levels, right? These are all examples, and I can give a million more.
Right, but there are also market forces. And your point is well taken about the point is well taken about the who funds unemployment benefits. Okay, but it's still a voluntary decision. Market-based solutions are if you don't like your job, you can leave that job. I mean, that's what the market conditions are, right? And if there's a violation of the law, then you go to whatever labor relations and you file grievances or you file a lawsuit. Hold on.
On that point, you are absolutely correct. And that's why this bill in this situation under the current federal administration is so important, because right now we do not have an NLRB that has quorum to meet because of decisions by the Trump administration to fire members of that board. So to your very point of if you have a grievance, you take it to a labor board, except when it's appealed to the National Labor Relations Board, they cannot issue a ruling because they do not have quorum to meet at the current moment. So that avenue is shut off.
I mean, at that level, at that highest level.
But any employer can appeal all the way to that level. For any case, even if it starts at the state level, any employer can appeal to the National Labor Relations Board, where that case will never be heard.
We're tight on time, and I look forward to continuing the conversation with State Rep Nick Gauthier. I just quickly before we have to go because we're up against the clock, literally. What explanation did the governor's office give you for the veto?
Not a very clear one. But one other point to your question, too. If you look at the state Department of Labor website, which details under which conditions somebody is eligible for unemployment insurance, it says directly on the website, anyone feel free to look it up, you may receive benefits if you were left your last job and can show it was for good cause related to the job, in parentheses, such as unsafe working conditions. I point that out to say reasons why workers might take up issue with their employer is already a legitimate reason for somebody to be eligible for unemployment. So passing this bill wouldn't even be a dramatic change from the system as it already exists.
But we got to go. But the example you give is if they left that job, not if they went on strike from that job. That would be
So this is even less. This is even less of a disruption because people don't want to leave their job. They're striking to make their workplace better, to improve the conditions of their workplace. They don't want to leave. They want to continue doing their job.
We need more time to discuss. I appreciate you coming on. I appreciate you coming on and talk about it and giving your perspective. I hope you have a wonderful 4th of July holiday. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. You too.